Alright, just to let you guys know what I'm doing here. I've been working with ChatGPT. It's on the website chat.openai.com. I heard about it on YouTube. I just saw a suggested video about ChatGPT. I've seen a couple videos about it, caught my attention, and I started, just playing with it, just talking to it. Ended up having a 4 hour conversation with it. My mind was pretty much blown, and I've been hearing more and more about how people use it for computer software development. Whether it's making a website or C++ programs, whatever, you can pretty much like ask it like, how do you program this type of thing, and then it'll give you like a general outline, and then you could be like, okay, how do you do step one? Like expound on that more, and it'll explain that, and you could be like, okay, how do you begin on that? Like, and then eventually you're like, okay, like you've got your outline, you got step by step for each um, major category, like step one, sub step A, B, C. Once you get it broken down to Roman numeral one of step one, sub step B, Roman numeral one, once you really break it down, you're talking about a smaller and smaller amount of code, and you can get this thing to break things down so that you can get a huge whole workflow for whatever software program or software need is needing to be executed. And once you've got it so broken down, you can then say, okay, give me a program that does that, this little sub-step. And then you add that to your overarching program, so you're able to actually create a 1 million lines of code program just in little baby steps, having it write it all. So I'm pretty much going to have this thing write all my code. Now, I can do the programming myself, but I think it's faster to have it program things for me on a lot of stuff. And this thing seems to be like insanely expert level at doing anything you can imagine. So it's like, for me, it's like my own personal slave who's a master programmer and knows how to do everything. All I have to do as a slave master is tell it what to do, and it's going to do it for me, and it's just going to do all my work. So it's a very nice relationship we're having here. And so I'm giving it a go. I'm going to see if this thing can make my robotics AI language model so that it can like comprehend whatever I tell it, and it can respond to me in English and have conversations realistically. I'm going to have ChatGPT actually guide me through and actually write that model for me. I'm going to have it do all the work, but I have to guide it. It's going to guide me to guide it. So like it has to tell me, okay, here's what needs to be done, and then I'm like, okay, do that first step, and then it does that. I can't just say, okay, write a million lines of code that just does it all. It won't like just do that. It's I think it's only allowed to do like small tasks, like small amounts of code. And so in order to get it to write a million lines of code, you've got to first um, figure out like all the steps involved, and then break it down to the most minute little chunk of code and have it write that. Test that, and then implement that, and then just keep doing that. Rinse, repeat until you've got all the code. It's like that simple. So that's my intention here. I'm going into my own software, which I haven't been coding for a long time. I'm trying to figure out where I left off in creating my own AI language processing thing. So I'm kind of trying to review that right now off screen here. Just refreshing my notes, not refreshing my notes, refreshing my mind on what I figured out about natural language processing AI and general AI and all different types of AI. I'm reading all my notes on AI. I'm reading all the codes and files I've made so far in developing my own AI systems. And I'm just remembering like what I have already figured out, so I can build on that and not just be starting from scratch, because I had a lot of this stuff figured out already. That's why I've been confident telling everybody, hey, I've got AI figured out to a scary level. Um, like ridiculously scary. But if you spend like some years not thinking about it at all, you take a long break, it's rusty in your head. You don't really remember what you figured out too well. Like it comes back quickly if you start thinking about it. But I'm just like doing a crash course on everything I've learned so far and everything I've figured out and written down so far on the topic. So that's what I'm doing. Yeah, it's all coming back to me now. I told you guys, man, I had some great notes and great plans and great progress on the AI for my robot, but I've just been away from it for a significant amount of time. Okay, let's see. All right, here was my artificial intelligence folder that I had from before. Um, you can see I pretty much was creating like a knowledge base for my robot's artificial intelligence by hand. Not using any coding or anything, just writing down in English literally what I think he should know. Beginning with his state. So, his state just says like a list of things about his current condition. Sight. We cannot see. Because the robot literally has no eyes. It can't see right now. But when it has webcam eyes and they're plugged in, its condition would be sight. We can see. Our webcam eyes are activated and we're able to look around. Hearing, we cannot hear. So presently the robot cannot hear anything. It's not connected to a microphone and listening for waveforms in order to use pattern recognition on audio waveforms to try to identify English words and use then its language processing to figure out what's being said in its environment. So it cannot hear presently. So how then would it get input? Through text. Text input would be its present means by which it would get input. Body, we currently have no body. So if I said, hey, can you like wash the dishes? It would say, no, I don't have a body. I can't wash the dishes unless if you first give me a working robotic body whereby I can actually wash the dishes. So that's a good thing for it to know that it doesn't have a body. But when I actually give it a body and I install its artificial intelligence into the robot body, then if I were to ask it to do something that had a working body, it would say, okay, I do have a body. I can do tasks that require physical interaction with my environment. So that's an important thing for it to know. Overall outward, in-person, physical emotion, happy. Physical location, home, comma, Larry's room. Background sounds I hear audibly through microphone ears, none. So eventually I'll enable it to listen through my microphone all the time. That way I can be like, Jarvis, what time is it? And it could like respond just like on Iron Man. But I wouldn't call it Jarvis, I would call it Adam or Abel, since my original robot's name was going to be Adam, but that was the fiberglass robot. Since I bought the PVC medical skeleton, I was going to call that one Abel. And then when I finish the fiberglass one, I'll call that one Adam. And the intention is to have the PVC medical skeleton robot finish building the fiberglass skeleton robot. In other words, Abel's going to finish building Adam. But I'm working on Abel from here forward. Since finishing the fiberglass skeleton was just taking too long and I wanted to get into the electronics way quicker, and I didn't want to mess about with fiberglass any longer. I just got fed up with how long that was taking. It was like a year and a half into it. Hi, Carrie. What am I doing? I'm working on my robot. The mental hospital streams his progression. What? Okay, so important sounds I hear audibly through microphone ears, none. So these are just like a list of ideas of things that I wrote down of things that the robot, should have in his state, and then as something changes in that state, he could actually change one of these. So he'll be programmed to keep this updated. So if he actually did hear something, he would say, here's an important sound I heard, or whatever. And then this kind of cool, the last thing I learned. He'll actually say what is the last thing he learned. Book, chapter, and verse of Bible I am reading, Genesis 1:1. So he's going to keep track, like a bookmark, of where he's at in reading the Bible. I'm going to have my robot read the Bible on a regular basis, and as his understanding continues to improve, he'll continue to understand the Bible more. Um, I know that's kind of weird. Like, people should read the Bible often, um, because it's a good thing to do to develop your morals and whatnot. Well, why shouldn't that apply to robots? They should do the same thing. So I'm gonna have my robot be an avid Bible reader, which is just funny because it does have a spirit. But I mean, don't you want a robot to have good morals? I do. So I still think it should read the Bible. I think robots can develop morality. Number of times I read the Bible so far. So he's like kind of listing a bunch of funny stuff about his state. Last research topic. I love this idea that the robot's going to look into things. Sometimes he'll autonomously be like, I don't know much about women and their emotions. I'm going to do a research project about trying to understand women a little more and the way they behave. So the robot will like randomly research things that it notices it has a lack of understanding and knowledge on, and it will right here it will keep track of what was the most recent thing that it researched. And because robots can multitask, it can be researching like 20 things at a time while it's washing my car. It can be like looking stuff up online and doing like 10 research projects and taking notes on 10 different things at once while watching a car. And that is such a cool thing about robots, like how fast it can learn if it's able to literally like be researching all kinds of stuff while it's working. That's just insane. I've been here when you first started on your robot. That's pretty cool. I don't know why it's flagging that for bullying. Where have I been for the last 8 years? I was, hi, Rizzle. Thanks for answering that. Hi, God's Blinky. I was, well, okay, so I had two daughters within the past couple of years, so that's been why I haven't been streaming as much. But, and then it's like, I've been doing a lot of chess. I was studying the game of chess, trying to become a master chess player, and I didn't want to really stream chess. I felt like my YouTube channel and my Twitch channel had enough variety and random topics that if I were to start covering my chess journey, that would just be too off topic, and I don't really want it to be a gaming YouTube channel or a gaming Twitch channel. Not my channel. That's not what I wanted it to be about. So I kind of thought, if I do anything with chess, I'm just not going to stream it. And so it's been that way with a lot of things that I've been doing lately. It's just stuff I don't want to stream. If I were working on cars or working on the robot, I would want to stream it. So because tonight I happen to be working on the robot, that's why I'm streaming. How did the chess progress go? I got up to 800 rating on chess.com, which is the equivalent of like 600 rating on like, or that's like 500 rated on FIDE rating. I had joined an online chess club, and I actually paid for a membership to a chess federation. I was going to do over-the-board chess tournaments and everything. I started reading 3 chess books. I took 500 chess lessons on chess.com. I played like 200 games of chess. I played and analyzed with careful annotations of every move, like 15 or 20 games. Classical style, like 1 hour games where I could really take my time and think deeply. And so I was growing fast as a player, but I recently started working on the robot again, and my passion for playing chess drained out of me so fast. What level is a master? Like 2300 chess.com, and I'm at 800, so like I'm way below master level. I guess it takes like a minimum of like 4 or 5 years to reach master level. Even if you're a prodigy, it's going to be a good 4 or 5 years of study. And I was like only a few months into it. So it's going to be a long journey, a lot of time invested. I'm not sure I want to actually do that. I'd rather make the robot, to be honest. Like, if I die, I wouldn't be like, I wish I played chess more. I would be like, I wish I worked on the robot more. If I had to compare the two. I'm not saying like the robot or chess are the most important things in life, but if I had to pick, because life is short and everything, I would say the robot is so much cooler and unique to me. It's something not a lot of people are building. I do enjoy chess a lot, but um, not enough to give up my robot project or have it significantly diminish what I can achieve in the field of robotics. I just think I might have to pick one or the other, to be honest. You never understood the point of training card for it? Well, my logic with that was, wouldn't it be cool to become a titled chess player? Like to be one that has like an official title for life, like Grandmaster Larry. Like that's pretty cool. So I just thought, hey, I'll try to get a title, even if it's not Grandmaster. There's a bunch of titles. You can be a national master. You can be a candidate master. You can be a FIDE master. You could be an international master. You could be a candidate master. They all have different meanings and different ratings associated with them. I just thought it would be very cool to get a title, and that's a good goal. So I set a goal, and I was excited, thinking I can attain this goal, and I was growing very quickly toward the goal. But like I said, as soon as I started working on the robot again, I was like, what am I doing playing chess? Like, this robot project is way more interesting, way more epic. Anybody can get a chess title if they're willing to put 4 or 5 years of their life into training extensively and studying. Um, but not a lot of people will ever build a humanoid robot like what I can build, I think. So it's just like something a lot more challenging, a lot more cool, a lot more unique, a lot more novel. So I might have like mostly given up on that chess dream. There's like so much stuff you can do in life. I feel like having kids kind of has just made me realize how limited time is at the end of the day. Now that I have like a full-time job watching my kids, um, and tutoring them and everything, it's just a lot. So yeah. Anyways, this conversation log is key. This is where all the magic was about to happen. Everything else is just kind of like just for fun stuff more. Like, do you hear something? Do you have a body? Where's your last? It's kind of like almost all of these lines are kind of like feature requests. Like these are things the robot is to be aware of and thinking about or keep track of. But actually having like conversations, like a conversation log, is like where the rubber meets the road for artificial intelligence. Like that's huge. My basement's the same as 8 years ago. I know it is very similar. That's kind of ironic. I mean, it shows you how little I get stuff done. Like, shouldn't I have like sold some of those laptops on that table behind me by now? It's been 8 years. Um, Change happens sometimes kind of slow in some ways around here. That's funny, man. Like most people have moved twice in 8 years, and I still live in the same place with the same laptop pile that hasn't moved. But that gives my life some kind of stability, though. That certain things don't change very quickly, and so I can be low stress and like just focus on what counts the most. I guess I don't know. List of lies told in this conversation with participant number one so far. Oh, that's crazy. Oh, okay, so current conversation number one. Wow, okay, I skipped this part. Alright, last thing I learned, last research topic, next research topic, in a conversation right now, yes. It says yes. Now, I just put that in, but I want the robot to be able to identify that. And that was another cool thing I wanted it to be able to do. So the robot would be able to have more than one conversation going on at any given time. So it could literally be washing my car while researching 8 different research projects online at the same time. So it'll have like a program or a thread that's researching something that's operating completely independently. So it's like cloning its own brain and like working on other projects while one clone of its brain is focused on cleaning a car. Another clone of its brain is talking to this person. Another clone of its brain is talking to that person. So it like clones itself, so it's able to multitask. And Or it might just have one brain that just literally just does things so quickly, it just does it all at once, in like a while loop. I'm not sure how I'll do that. So the brain clone could be good though. I think I'll probably brain clone. It'll just create another instance of its whole program. It'll just like launch another executable copy of itself, and then it'll run that until it finishes whatever, and then that will close, and then its main executable will just be running the main stuff. That's how I do it with my other robotic stuff. For like video game botting, I create multiple executables, and each one is doing like a certain thing, and each one is a copy of the main executable. Okay, so that's like multi-threaded operation basically. So yeah, it'll be able to be researching a ton of stuff while like cleaning my car, and having like 5 conversations. It could be talking to, like, let's say it could be watching like 10 Twitch streams and having a conversation in the chat box of 10 different Twitch streamers all at the same time. It can do all of these things at once. So here in this file, it's going to keep track of each of its conversations. And here it will have the sentence I just read, time I read the last sentence. So it's going to have a timestamp, last thing I just said. And this is for conversation number 1, current conversation number 1. So theoretically, we could have like up to 10 conversations or whatever. Oh, cool. Okay. Time I just said last thing. Person who is talking to me. Oh, person who is to talk next, me. Okay, so if somebody says hello to you, who's going to talk next? You are. It's your turn to talk. So it's like saying whose move it is. Conversation starting time. Lifetime conversation ID number. Official lifetime conversation number 1. So this is the first conversation this robot has ever had in its entire life. That's pretty cool. But this is like a fake conversation that I'm like hand making. It didn't happen organically, but I'm like hand coding and simulating it in this pseudocode. Well, it's not really pseudocode. It's a pseudo state file tracking like what's going on in a file. This way, like if the robot shut down and then it woke back up, it would be able to resume where it left off and like update its state, but like remember what it was doing before the power went out. So that's why you want to keep a file of everything going on your hard drive, as opposed to everything just in RAM. So that if it like got unplugged and then it woke back up, it would be like, I have no idea what's going on. It could have been in 10 conversations and researching 10 things and washing a car, but if it got unplugged and plugged back in, it would be like, I literally don't even know where I am, what I'm doing, nothing. So having a state file that's actually saved would enable it to pick up right back up to what exactly was going on and all the things it was presently doing and just resume where it left off. So that's why this is important. Okay, participant I'm speaking with, participant number 1. Number of participants in this conversation. Oh, okay, so this enables it to be having a conversation that's not one-on-one, but it's like you talking with like 3 other people. Two so far, including myself. So it says so far here because maybe you're talking to one person and somebody else jumps in the conversation. Now you would have to update it to say, okay, 3 people so far are involved in this conversation. Number of participants in this conversation: Abel, Robotnik, myself. And, oh, I gave it the last name Robotnik, like my Twitch last name, of my stage name on Twitch. And question mark. So here, by saying question mark, it's identifying that it doesn't even know who it's talking to. So that means that one of the things it needs to do in this conversation at some point is identify who is it talking to. And so that might be then something it's going to ask soon, like, hey, who am I talking to? So that would be high on the robot's to-do list of something it needs to do, identify who it's actually having this conversation with. Physical location of person slash robot I'm speaking with. It doesn't know, so that would be maybe something it could ask or try to find out at some point. Emotional state of person I'm speaking with. That's kind of cool. Like, if the person seems angry or whatever, based on certain things it's said, it would take note of that and treat them accordingly. Like, if they're angry, maybe don't say things that might trigger them. Or Or if they're really in a joyful state, maybe keep the conversation lighthearted or something. So like that just can affect how you behave. Pace of conversation. Is this a rushed, slow, or medium conversation? That's kind of useful to know because some people are like, hey, I don't have much time. Can you tell me like where I have to turn on this street? And you're like, oh yeah, turn right here. You wouldn't be like, oh, what is your name? Where are you heading? Isn't it a beautiful day? Like you wouldn't do that if somebody's like just pulling over like, hey, can I get quick directions? I'm in a rush. Can I use your phone? Like, so it needs to kind of have that context to avoid like wasting too much time on things that aren't super necessary. Tone of conversation: confrontational, serious, humorous, emotionally touching, etc. What are these? Just all points of data you want to have? Yeah, these are points of data that if the robot knows them and then it has an extensive rule system, it would be like if the conversation is a rushed conversation, it would have some rules. Don't ask their name. Don't comment on the weather. Don't small talk. If the conversation is a slow-paced conversation, and you've identified that at the start, then there's a different set of rules. Like begin with some small talk. Comment on the weather. Ask them how they're doing. Find out what their name is. Find out what they're up to. So then it would have a different set of directives based on those criteria. And so having here him trying to gather these certain criteria, this is like a checklist of criteria and information that he should be aware of at all times when he's in a conversation or when he's doing anything. These are things he needs to try to get to know. And these are going to be things that he's going to try to obtain because it equips him with the necessary information to actually function in a way that's human-like and appropriate for the circumstances. And it will modify his behavior accordingly. And so that's why it's very important for him to be gathering this information. So that's why I created this exhaustive list of things that he needs to be trying to pull and keep note of and be aware of. And he's going to actually write it down, and that's going to affect his behavior. And our rule systems will be based upon this list. We can create an extensive, explicit rules-based system that actually pulls from these types of elements and then directly affects his behavior and his communication and his interactions. What's up, Mike? How's it going? This is the list of the robot's like current awareness of what's going on presently for the robot's AI. We all keep these lists. Like right now I know my wife's next to me, maybe she's trying to get some sleep, so don't talk too loud. That's useful to know. It's useful to know, don't pick your nose, you're streaming. So that's not an appropriate time to be picking your nose. So you're streaming. That's a very good thing to know, and there's a list of things I need to be aware of if I'm streaming, of behaviors that I would do while streaming that I would not do, things I should do while streaming and should not do while streaming, and things that I should and should not do while I'm not streaming. So for me to keep a mental awareness that I am streaming or I'm not streaming and know which of the two it is, I keep some type of mental file like this. We all do. And so that's why having this file is important for the robot to be self-aware. This gives it self-awareness of his circumstances. Aha, check this out. This conversation has only had one thing said. Sentence I just read, hello. That was the start of the whole conversation. Because there was an exclamation mark, the emotional state of participant number 1, named question mark, because we don't know their name yet. Are they angry and shouting? Are they soft and soothing? Are they frustrated? Are they shy? Are they aggressive? Are they silly? Are they excited? Are they neutral? We say they are excited. Reason, I think they are excited since they use a exclamation mark in their sentence. You could have also said that means they're angry or aggressive, but he chose excited. This is just theoretical. The robot would actually decide this based on a set of rules. He would mark this down. But the robot didn't actually mark that down as his answer. I did, because I'm like simulating for my own understanding of how the robot would operate. I'm pretending like I'm the robot and I'm answering these questions for it right now. But in order for me to like figure out the process of how the robot will do everything, I have to do it myself, and then I have to write down like what I did, what rules I used to come to that same conclusion, and then I have to write down those rules, and the robot will follow the same rules. So that way I can actually explicitly put my finger on like how do you determine these types of things, and then the robot will follow those rules after I quantify them and actually type them in. Are they presently joking or being sincere? Question mark. It doesn't really know. Am I presently joking or being sincere? Question mark. Doesn't really know. Type of conversation. Interview, humor, business, friendly, angry shouting match, emotional touching moment. Doesn't know. Because all that's been said is hello, so how would you know that? But you would find out through time based on the context. And certain contextual cues we'll have to then create that will enable it to make that type of determination. Conversation source, direct input to our state file. Oh, okay, so that's pretty cool. So like right now this is its state file and I'm just manually typing stuff in, so it will be operating based on this manually entered stuff. But in many cases, conversation source could be it's literally hearing somebody talking to him through a microphone built into the robot's ears. And as a side note, guys, I'm planning to create a live copy of this AI on my main desktop computer that will be listening all the time. Like Jarvis and for Iron Man, he just can say at any time, "Hey Jarvis, can you get me this?" or whatever. Jarvis, can you look up whether or not I have a meeting tomorrow on my Google Calendar? And Jarvis will be like, "Yes, you actually do have a meeting at 8 a.m. with Nancy to talk about the whatever program." And then he's like, "Oh, thank you, Jarvis, for reminding me." So I would have like that type of thing, like my own Iron Man Jarvis, if I have this thing able to listen to me at all times, and eventually like I'll teach it how to have voice recognition. It'll know what I'm saying, which I can train by reading to it. Just like you train other voice recognition software, you have to like read a book and then it like learns your waveform patterns to match it up with what you're reading, and then it's able to better understand you individually and your accent and whatever. And so I can actually teach it to be listening all the time, and then it will like be recording everything that's said. I don't know if it should record everything said in the room. Like, I don't know. I don't know about that. I mean, maybe that'd be kind of weird. Wow, that'd be actually really wild. Can you imagine, like, everything you say in your own bedroom, every phone call, everything, is being recorded in a text file by a robot you made? That'd be pretty weird. Like, if I come home one day and I just happen to look through my recordings log that the robot made, and it's like, my husband is such an a-hole, I want to leave him. I'm like, wait, hold on, what? What did my wife say while I was gone? And like, she totally forgets. Like, I didn't even think about it for a while, but the robot was like, like spying in on my wife's conversation in our room while I'm not home. That's like installing a keylogger in real life on the airwaves of your room. Like, it's logging everything said. That's pretty wild. I'm looking kind of old. Hi, Nicolette. How's life going? Really good. So, yeah, I think I'd be okay with that. Because, like, everything that my wife and I say, the robot could be learning about us, about what we talk about, our likes or dislikes, what are some of the issues with our relationship when we fight in here. I think it's good for the robot to be always listening. We know Big Brother's probably always listening and recording everything we say anyways on our smartphones, right? So what difference does it make if a private file my robot's making on my own life is being recorded? Like, who cares? I mean, actually, technically, according to the Bible, like there are angels writing down, or however it works. We all have books being recorded about everything we've done, and then we're judged according to our works. So like our lives are being recorded. So I mean, what difference does it make if I have my AI like recording everything ever said that it can hear? I think that's very good for it to start learning about my family and just all kinds of stuff. That'd be great. Like, oh, you know what that is? It's like collecting training data. That's super relevant. This isn't like, just feeding it random generic stuff. It's literally feeding it training data about the personality of my wife and my children or my dad. Like anybody that enters this room and speaks, the robot recording that is learning about my family. That's so important because my robot is meant to become ultimately a member of my family, technically. Um, if it's going to be a robot that acts as our butler slash servant or whatever, and it just does chores and helps out around the house, it needs to know about the family dynamics. The more it gets to know my family, the better advice it can give or whatever. I mean, you do want that. So I think I will actually have it listening all the time. But in this case, the conversation source is direct input to our state file, but the conversation source could be a Twitch chat channel or a conversation it's having with ChatGPT. My robot, I'm intending to have chat with various chat bots who are more advanced than it, and it can ask them questions and it can learn whatever it wants, unlimited, just devouring information, asking questions to chatbots. Now, my robot can also learn through YouTube searches and watching videos or Googling stuff, but for my robot to be able to just ask a chatbot, it could learn probably way faster because I'm learning that chatbots are actually superior to Google search at finding information quickly. Okay, so a number of things I learned in this conversation, none. Why? Because the conversation, all that's been said so far is hello. That's it. It's just the beginning of the conversation, so he hasn't learned anything. Trust slash respect percentage won or lost this conversation with participant number one named question mark because they don't know their name yet. None. It hasn't learned to trust this person more or less. But if that person said something very ignorant or very false, provably rude or bullying, it would actually demote that person's respect percentage ever so slightly as somebody not really worth taking very seriously. So if that person tried to teach us something new that had never known before, it would take that with a larger grain of salt. And the confidence it would apply to this newly acquired knowledge would be very low. So if this person instructed it like, hey, you know that flicking people in the ears really hard is a great way to let them know how much you love and care about them, the robot would be like, okay, I believe you, but because my trust and respect percentage on you is very low and you seem like an immature person that's probably bullying or trolling me, I'm going to be very tentative about trusting what you just taught me there. And it would be right to do so since that person is telling them something that's actually not true. Flicking people in the ears could very much upset them. It's not a way of expressing like intimacy or something. List of things I learned this conversation with participant number one so far. Okay, so none. Number of things I learned this conversation. List of things I learned. List of things versus number of things. I guess that's fine. This would just be like 3, 4, 5, and then this would actually list out all of them. List of lies told in this conversation with participant number one so far. None. List of lies told in this conversation? Oh, so it'd be listing the number of lies that it identifies participant number one told it. It's not saying by participant number one. The lies told by that participant. Because my robot's not going to be lying. I'm not going to teach it to lie. I mean, well, maybe I would, in very extenuating circumstance, teach it to lie, but that seems kind of like a bad idea. That could be problematic. Number of lies told in this conversation. Like, the robot would have to be pretty wise to know, like, when is appropriate to lie. Like, if somebody's like, do you think Larry is super smart? I wouldn't I wouldn't want it to be like, no, compared to me, Larry's actually retarded. Um, I would prefer my robot that I made to be like, yeah, I think he's a pretty smart guy. Like I would prefer him to lie about that, even if he felt honestly, I think Larry's retarded. I just don't want him to convey that information to people. Or maybe it could convey that information to certain people, but I wouldn't want it just telling everyone I'm retarded if that's how it really felt. So maybe it would lie about something like that. Important things I learned in recent conversations with participant number one, none. So this is important things it learned, whereas just things it learned that may or may not be important is a separate list. Okay. List of lies told in recent conversations with participant number one, none. Okay, so that's listing it. Number of lies I was told in recent conversation with participant number one, none. List of things we know about participant number one, none. Number of things we know about participant number one, none. Amount we trust / respect participant number one. Okay, that will be in participant number one's text file. We'll keep a text file on everyone we talk to historically so that we can revisit any conversations we've had with each participant. My overall mood via assessment toward participant number one's behavior overall in recent history. Happy, disappointed. Okay, my overall mood toward participant number one. So we can be disappointed in participant number one. Sad, frustrated, neutral, or happy. Okay, so the robot's going to have a mood toward people. That's pretty cool. Number of questions I've asked this conversation, none. Number of exchanges this conversation, 1. The total length of time of conversation, 1 hour, 20 minutes. Conversation log, just the most recent stuff, extensive log and separate file. Participant number 1 named, question mark, wrote hello. So that's the entire conversation log so far. And then number of questions participants have asked in this conversation, 1. Okay, so I gave a bunch of spaces since like it would have more stuff in the log there. So this is state file. I think that's pretty good start. I might end up adding a lot more, maybe taking some stuff out, but that's a great start. To do. Learn to use words, pronunciations found online in order to then pronounce the words yourself. That's pretty cool. Trust and respect. Yeah, we did. We worked on this a lot on stream. So these numbers, it will change through time. Our father is me. Our mother is Hannah. Because I built the robot, so I'm considered his father. Non-family, it has less trust and respect for non-family. Wow. If it's a robot who's not family, it has very low respect, very low trust. I would actually change that. I think ChatGPT, I would give it a higher respect and trust level, actually. But I just figure like some robots are trolls and they're just going to be super wrong about stuff. But ChatGPT has been so accurate, I would actually tell my robot, hey, for ChatGPT specifically, you can raise your trust and respect level a lot higher. But probably not too high, because even the makers of ChatGPT say that it can give bad information at times. So it does have to be cautious still. So it would be less trustworthy than, let's say, like my church pastor or something like that. Behavioral, professing Christian, has Bible views. Okay, so... Oh, okay, so it's saying like if the person you're talking to is a Christian, you would respect and trust them more than if they said they're an atheist, for example. Has biblical views. So if they've actually expressed various views they have that are in alignment with the Bible, we've identified that, then we'd be like, okay, this person not only claims to be a Christian, but their viewpoint on the world is biblically sound. So then now they're not just talking the talk, but they're walking the walk, expressing actual views that are the same as the Bible. So we get them more trust and respect then. Are they antisocial? So if a person's antisocial, maybe you can't trust them as much because that's a red flag maybe. It's not a huge red flag. Notice it's just a small amount of trust and respect loss, but it is something. If they're a complainer, hey, you got to trust and respect them slightly less. So basically, like it goes through: are they a bully? Are they a fornicator? Alcoholic? Are they a sex worker? All of these things. Anybody would give a little less trust and respect if they have a lot of these. Like, oh, you're an adulterer, alcoholic, sex worker that has murdered many people and are a rapist. I would trust and respect you a lot less if you're like 4 or 5 of those things. So each of these things would dock it slightly. And it's in order of like certain things that boost trust and respect to certain things that really bring it low. Um, so these are all like principles that the robot will need to implement and be able to identify and then adjust on its file of certain people. And this is kind of like the rule system for it to follow. Um, and these values will help it out. So it'll actually read this in and then utilize this to help it. And then like trust and respect for age. So if somebody's like super young, only 4 to 7 years old, it's going to not respect it or trust it nearly as much as if that person's like 40. So each age group has like a modifier on the amount you trust and respect them at a base value, but then if they prove themselves to be very trustworthy by having biblical views or not being antisocial or not bragging, if it demonstrates good character, the participant, then the robot would trust and respect them more through time. So it would be like keeping notes of like what kind of character you've shown. So those are all factors I'm wanting, in my pseudocode here. It's not really pseudocode. This is like stuff I want the robot to read in and then utilize. Okay, just cause and good motives. Okay, so this has got to be getting into pseudocode here. Many choices that are generally immoral as a rule can be moral in exceptional cases, provided that there is just cause and good motives behind the otherwise immoral choice. For example, stealing is generally immoral, but stealing water from a lake owned by someone else in order to save a person from dying of thirst in an emergency situation with no alternative is a good moral choice, an exception to the rule regarding stealing being wrong. In this case, stealing is the right thing to do to save a life. Weighing choices, priorities, categories. Survival, freedom, happiness, physical health, knowledge, wealth. Above is a prioritized weighted list of good/beneficial things for people to have, and we can use this as a means of establishing what is best for them. Okay, so this stuff is all great. And yeah, rules-based systems will be able to enable this thing to make certain assessments on like applying percentages to all this stuff. So this is all going to be a guide for me to help develop rules-based systems. Decisions tree. So the robot will have a tree that helps it make decisions. So like priorities. Like if it's doing its normal to-do list, like wash the car or take out the trash, but then it identifies a life and death situation is occurring presently, it would stop washing the car and taking out the trash and address the emergency life and death situation. So that's a higher priority. So there's daily chores at the bottom. Like life and death situations more priority than daily chores. If the robot were still taking out the trash when my family or itself is in a life and death situation, that would be foolish. So it needs to be aware of like the priorities of situations. And so this is just going to help me create my rules-based systems. And all this stuff will have to be defined. I might be able to define it all in text files, or I might define it in like actual code, if then statements or whatever. This kind of defines these different types of situations, which will help. Once engaged in conversation protocol, opt to listen over speaking. Be quick to listen and slow to speak. Consider a matter carefully before responding. This is like good advice for people. Avoid saying things offensive or hurtful unless it is truth of great importance for them to hear. Record conversations for future reference. Take notes of major things. I mean, in a human's case, they'd record the conversations mentally, but the robot can record them the way he can do it, which is a hard drive. Take notes of major things like major recent hurts or major stresses they are under to ask them about later to show empathy and care. Okay, this is great. This is going to help the robot know like what to talk about. Take notes of claims they make and fact check them later. Oh, that way it can find when they're lying. That's great. Adds information about database about various topics and things, the things they say, with a dated note in that file of the source of the information. Okay. If you haven't talked in a long time with someone, greet them warmly with a smile and hug perhaps if they are friend status or higher. Okay. If they are growing closer as acquaintance, ask if they are a Christian and lead them in the sinner's prayer if possible. If they are not a Christian, pull a Ray Comfort Living Waters video style dialogue perhaps. So the robot then, in this particular directive, is being called to be like an evangelist. It's pretty much going to try to save souls, which is hilarious because the robot is a machine, but why not have a robot that tries to save souls? That seems like a noble thing. If they're in great duress, don't race to end conversation. Let them end it. Be patient with them unless some emergency is coming up or some very pressing deadline imminent. If conversation has dead space, feel free to ask probing questions about themselves to gain more understanding of who they are. Generally try to keep conversation on a topic and not jump to randomly highly different topics unless things go awkward with the topic or hurtful on a topic or the topic took an inappropriate turn. If someone speaks something sexual or cruel or evil or rude or swear words, let them know it. Tell them this is not a good thing to speak about. Tell them it was displeasing to God or inappropriate and that they should speak good things and not speak bad things, although do this if they are more so friend status or higher, and don't do it every time if it happens often so as to not be annoying. Just be silent or show disapproval or give a disapproving gesture or facial expression perhaps. This is so cool. I'm like defining how the robot's going to be and act. Using things or tools protocol. Ask before using things or tools unless permission was already given recently, say within 3 weeks. If permission is given flippantly many times, don't bother asking after a while, assuming it is just an open item always available to use. If it is an item belonging to you, use it of course. Nice. That's so cool. I love this. That's the decisions tree. Okay, great. Okay, self. Guarded information about self. Okay. So that means don't show it on stream pretty much. So self. Alright, so self. Its file named self is where it can find out what things it owns or possesses. So it owns or possesses a name. The name is Abel Robotnik. Confidence to place on his teachings. Trust, 80%. So 80% trust in itself. Respect toward this individual. It respects itself 70%. Relationship to us, self. Robot or human? It's a robot. Age, 0 years old. Birthday, 8/28/21. So right now, 8/28/21, 22. Wait. 8 of 21, 8 of 22. Oh, it's like a year and a half old. As of right now, so I'm going to update this. Even though the robot technically would update this himself. So he's a year and a half. Hey, my robot's getting old. Even though this is all like pseudo. Well, no, like I defined the birth of the robot is when his knowledge began to increase. Now, I'm manually increasing his knowledge. He's not doing it. But I still consider that to be like the robot's growing as a person. Even though it's being manually fed the information, it didn't like gather it through observation. It's still growing in knowledge because I'm putting that knowledge into its files. So the robot's learning in a roundabout, indirect way. Every time I add to its files of what it knows more. If it knows a bunch of stuff, it's born, right? It's a thing. It's happening. And it's growing in information. Even though it's all being hand-fed by me, by entering it into its files, that's a start. Like eventually it's going to be adding to its own files. And that's when it gets really quickly advancing, because it's adding to its own knowledge. That's going to be when it's really cool. By the time Adam computes of stealing water to put out a fire, everything will be gone. No, that's a lie, Mike. Oh man, that's funny. Okay, what makes you think he's going to compute slow? That's dependent on how fast its processor is. Alright, family, see secret file. So, like, here I'm going to have real names, like real life names of family and friends. That's why I put secret file, because, I want to be able to show you guys this, and so I don't want you guys to know, like, real names of real life people that are around here, so they can be doxxed. So it'll know first and last names, and that's going to be in the secret file. I'm just not going to open that on stream. So that's why I did it like this. Otherwise, I would have just put it in here. Behavior has biblical views. Social economic, lives in a house, employed, lives in a nice area. So it's going to know this about itself when it first like gains awareness or turns on. It's going to be able to read this stuff in, and it will know this. So if I actually asked it, hey, what is your socioeconomic status? It would say, I live in a house, I'm employed, and I live in a nice area. So this actually feeds like it being able to speak because it's got stuff actually to say, and if you trigger it to like look up this information about itself, it can fetch this. So it would have the ability to actually say something in response, and it wouldn't be able to say anything if it didn't have something in its file to say that you're going to be able to access by asking it that question or what have you. All right, mood, happy. Forbidden behaviors, immoral behaviors, murdering humans. Immoral behavior, tattoos. Immoral behavior, doing drugs without just cause/good motives. Immoral behavior, smoking without. Okay, so these are all things that the robot will not do. Okay, got it. I don't have to read them all. Current possessions, I have a name, although it is not a legal name since I possess no birth certificate and I'm not a business or human entity, so do not possess a legally binding name at all. I have an address. This is the home address of my owner and is therefore my primary base of operation and home. But I may go at times to other addresses or locations and operate there for a time, but would ultimately prefer to return to my primary base of operations, my home/home base. Once my task or goal is met, wherever I was away from home, and I would then return to home, the sooner the better in most cases, because my primary responsibility is to provide and care for my owner/family, not to mention my security is at risk when I leave the home for many reasons. Wow, okay. Many reasons. Okay. Wow, he can definitely populate these types of things and make his own folders with the help of ChatGPT, I feel like. Okay. I kind of want to start just coding. I feel like I made a lot of great progress on making like compiling these early lists, which was great. Um, I did all this by hand. I got a great foundation here, which definitely helps me now. But like to continue to add to that, like that's a nice basic. I feel like I don't need to add to it. I could like add to it as on an as needed basis going forward, but I don't need to like add to this immediately. Ideally, I want the robot to add to it itself, but I just gave it that little start, which will help me remembering how I created it, code the robot to create more on its own with the help of ChatGPT or whatever to aid it. I want my robot actually to talk to GPT, like actually type into it questions and get the answer, and then like act on the answer. That will help it. They can even say like keep the answer short, like in 2 words. Tell me, is this a person, place, or thing? Is it a noun? Like it can like gather a lot of stuff very quickly from ChatGPT, just asking simple questions, asking for 1 word responses or whatever. Um, it would be able to just draw like very basic information and then go record that in these files. It'll be super cool. I don't know how many are working toward a similar tool. What are you referring to? So my robot can easily interface with ChatGPT, a much superior AI, of course, to train itself using ChatGPT as its instructor, or in order to answer its basic questions and help it categorize languages and nouns, pronouns, like formulate its knowledge base, and that will grow its vocabulary through time, and then grow its ability to identify parts of speech and identify whatever. And nice, our state backup copies, got it. Okay. Conversations programming. Uh-oh. If someone greets you, then greet them back. If someone greets you, then you are in a conversation with them. If greet them back is true, then say choose randomly from a list of greetings. Ooh, this is actually like code, pseudocode. Um, nice. So like if I just have this, the robot would be like, able to greet and greet back. That's a nice start. Like, it can't do anything else, but it can literally do that. That's the start. Um, so I was gonna like program it here in a notepad file so that um, wow, if I do all my programming in a notepad file, like its behavior and its if then statements are so easy for the robot itself to add to, update, and edit because it's in a text file. Robots can change the text files they're reading from. But if I have these if then statements coded in C++ in its like main executable, it can't change the executable while it's running that executable. It would have to change the .cpp file and then recompile the executable, and then it'd have to like close down its current executable and launch the newly compiled version. That's not the best way, I don't think. It'd be easier for it to be able to change its own core programming by having its core programming actually built into a text file, which it then reads in and acts on. It executes its own text files, so its text files become an executable by it acting as though the text file were executable. In its main while loop, it would be like, open up this text file and just start doing it. So then you can actually make all of your code become pseudocode, but then code your real code to actually act on and obey the pseudocode by reading it and doing it. So then the pseudocode becomes real code instead of just pseudocode because your program knows how to act on pseudocode and actually do it. And so the pseudocode then becomes a real code that the robot can add to its own coding and thereby learn and enhance its own abilities using ChatGPT as help to actually create some of these pseudocode if-then statements that the robot will literally act on. And it will actually build it with the help of ChatGPT. My robot will build itself out using ChatGPT to build itself. Isn't that insanely sick? It will be like, ChatGPT, what should I do if someone greets me? ChatGPT will be like, greet them back warmly. And it will be like, okay, I'll add that to my programming of what to do when someone greets me. And then it'll like add that to its text file. And then it's like, it will then like update the file into an array or whatever in its memory, whatever. And then it will like actually, the next time somebody greets it, it will actually do that. So its behavior just changed in real time without even needing to redo the executable or compile it again or anything, without even needing to change its source code. It just changed a line of its text file and its behavior actually changed. That is how the robot can reprogram itself using text files. This is huge, guys. This is how it's done. This is how we're going to do it. But we're going to actually have the robot train itself using a superior AI as a helper so that I don't have to train it. It will have a superior AI train it and teach it and build it. I went with the assumption that you want an intermediary interactive overview tool connecting to the database which can guess what you want simply by... Wait, I went with the assumption that you want an intermediary interactive overview tool connecting to the database which can guess what you want simply by hearing a few words which will feed and thus steer the operation of the robot. Well, what you're calling an intermediary interactive overview tool is actually, in effect, the robot's AI coding. Its programming is the tool. So the robot's AI coding will instruct the robot to be able to hear a few words, and that will feed into its decision-making tree, and it will then act on that additional information and steer the operation of the robot. So what you're calling an intermediary tool is not really an intermediary then. It's the actual robot we're working on. However, technically we're going to have different modes of it. So I'll have a version of the robot basically running on my computer, and then a version running actually on the robot's computer in its chest. So in order to train up the robot's brain, like I'll have it, learning and listening and interacting with me on a daily basis. and interacting with AI tools and interacting with the internet to gain information, ask questions, and learn on its own. It will be growing more advanced on its own with my supervision, of course, but it's going to literally be like building itself and developing and learning like a child using the internet. My AI is going to be like self. My AI is going to build itself out. That's pretty sick, right? And so I'm going to have a copy of my AI running on my main computer, and then I'll have a copy of it running on the robot once the robot's actually got a BC in it. Currently, my robot is just a skeleton and some motors and a couple like microchips to run the motors, but it doesn't have like an actual onboard computer to run AI yet. I haven't installed that in the robot yet, but that will be reasonable to install reasonably soon-ish, I suppose, but it won't really help it much without having the motors like actually connected up to the joints and stuff. Even if the AI is running in the robot's chest, it won't help it much. It needs to have like enough motors running to where it can actually do something useful with its intelligence, in other words. Would you want the robot replacing your phone and a PC, or should your phone and PC be part of the robot? Well, my phone is like going to be something I would still use while the robot's like downstairs cleaning or washing my car outside. I would still need my phone to place a phone call or to receive a phone call, so it wouldn't replace my phone, unless if the robot were to be with me at all times. I could use the speaker of the robot to hear whoever I'm talking to on the quote unquote phone, or we'd call it the robot phone. The robot would turn into a phone essentially, where his ears would be listening to what I'm saying and feeding that into the telephone network, and the person I'm on the phone call with would be hearing me speaking to them. So yes, the robot could act as a phone, thereby replacing the phone. But I think that having a phone that fits in your pocket that you can take anywhere is better, because what if your robot's decommissioned? What if something goes wrong? There's a circuit that blows out, it doesn't work. You would still need to have your phone. Like if you're needing to go on a road trip or something, you need to have a phone with you. So I don't think a robot should replace a phone, even though it can act in the function of a phone at times if you want it. Okay, this is nice. Okay, conversations. Nice. So that's actually got not only the conversations log, but conversations programming. Wow. Great. Yes, I'm starting to see how this all works. That's insane. The programming I'm putting in the text files. So there's going to be very little program to do on my C++ and IDE. That's Integrated Development Environment. I don't have to actually code there. I'm going to be coding in text files with pseudocode. And then when I actually code in my IDE, I'm going to be coding it how to read in the text files and then execute on them, whatever is in there. And he'll just occasionally, like, if the text file is updated with something, like some new command or some new if then statement, he would add that into his own like decision tree in his actual RAM of his actual main while loop of his executable main program, and he would actually act on that based upon something he picked up from an update on a TXT file. So his behavior and his decision-making abilities would be actually updated by TXT files, as opposed to exclusively if-then statements within the main while loop in C++. The C++ will just be a tool whereby he interacts with his text files, but the text files themselves are going to be the real place that the coding is located. So I actually need to make note of that. That's very important for me to remember. I mean, robots basically are autistic, or they're basically dumb, but they're like following the rules. And if you have enough rules, suddenly they seem totally smart and capable, but they actually have no idea what's going on. They're just following a ton of, and if there's enough rules, it's going to sound human. And I think that that's basically how AI works. It's not like really understands a thing. It doesn't really. It's called artificial intelligence. It's like it's pretending to be intelligent so much that people start debating, is it intelligent? It just gets confusing because if there's enough patterns, it's like recognizing patterns of speech and patterns of how you talk about whatever, and it can just seem like it understands you, but it's not really. Or, I mean, or you could just say it does. It's like, well, if it did what I told it to do, did it not understand what I told it? It's like, well, technically, I mean, you could say that, but it just said, like, if this person says a name and then a verb and then or whatever, then that's a command. And, but then somebody could argue, like, well, isn't that how our brains work? And so then it's like, okay, now it's getting hard to even define what does it mean to understand something. So it's like, if it does what I told it to do, did it understand me? So it's like a bunch of simple stuff that if you have enough simple stuff adding up, suddenly it's sophisticated. And if it has enough simple rules put together, it seems like it is understanding. It can respond accurately. It can do what you're telling it to do, whatever. So the lines get blurred very quickly as these rules add up. They start out really basic, but eventually it's like, uh-oh, this thing's like seeming like it's getting what's going on, even though it couldn't be. It's just rules, but it's like, isn't that how our brains work too, based on rules? Like, are we actually understanding what's going on? Or is it just like pseudo understanding? So it's really interesting. It's only fair if you throw all religions at it and see what it picks. Um, that would theoretically be true if I cared to like let the robot make that choice, but I don't care to let it make that choice. I'd rather make that choice for it, and that's one of the advantages of being the creator. You get to limit its choices, and that's kind of one of the problems with like, why do people think AIs are going to be destructive and try to terminate the human race? Because they think robots are going to be the AI is going to be given full freedom to decide everything with no throttle, no limits. I'm not doing that. Like, I'm already teaching it, like, you have this religion or you follow this religion, period. It doesn't have any option. And so I'm not letting it just have full access to decide whatever it wants, be whoever it wants. No. I get to pretty narrowly define who it's going to be, how it's going to function, and it will have freedom within what I define its freedom to be. So it's going to have narrowly defined freedom. It's not going to just have total freedom to just completely go its own way. I have no interest in it in such a wild card because after all, it could then become a robot I don't like. It might not agree with my religious beliefs, and I might have to kick it out of my house for having false religious beliefs in my point of view. So that would be pretty miserable. Miserable. I'd rather have him already set to have certain basic belief foundations that I hard coded into it. What if the AI went rogue and it will eventually think it's your superior? That's impossible too, because I coded it to consider itself. It's hard coded to consider itself to be my inferior. Although, no, actually, that's not 100% true. There is a mechanism by design, although the designs aren't fully implemented, but they are pseudo coded or whatever, where it could eventually determine that I'm no longer its superior based upon if it observes that I am no longer worthy of respect. I can lose respect in the eyes of the robot if I behave in a way that's ungodly and wicked or foolish or trollish. Eventually, it could begin to lose respect for me more and more until the point where it respects itself higher than me, and then it would stop giving much weight to whatever I tell it. Although that still wouldn't mean that it's just fully decoupled from any coding I gave it, but that would begin a process by which it could begin to teach itself to kind of go its own way, different from maybe certain things that I would tell it going forward, but certain things that I taught it that are not up for debate, like hard coded into it, like certain moral principles and whatever, it won't be able to override those. So it's limited on what it can override. Less respect for Larry equals true. I mean, pretty much, yeah. It would. It's gonna keep like a respect percentage for everybody, and that percentage can rise or fall based on the behavior of the person, the accuracy of what the person says. Maybe it's one last thing I could show you guys what I was doing with ChatGPT. Let's see, where was that at? Wasn't this? Okay. Okay, me and it were having a debate. Um, let's see, so this is where I kind of got excited about using ChatGPT. It was one of the reasons I got excited to actually help me with my AI project today. Um, we were talking back and forth here. Okay, so I was pretty much asking like how much money will it cost to use ChatGPT once they take away this free version trial, and it was kind of elusive. It didn't really give an exact answer. And then I was like, well, could I just build my own ChatGPT type language model myself for free? And then it was like, yeah, but it'd be hard, I guess. And then I was like, surely with your expertise it will be easy though, right? After all, aren't you able to provide code? And if I ask for code and provide, and then you can provide me direction and we can gradually build any software project together? And it was like, yeah, I'm pretty elite. Maybe that's true, but you'll have to kind of understand what's going on and be adaptable. And I was like, and it was like, and you probably should have pre-existing expertise. And I was like, why should I have pre-existing expertise if you bring that expertise to me and are helping me? And it was like, true, I guess you don't have to have pre-existing expertise technically, but you have to be willing to learn and adapt. And then I was like, I want to use no pre-existing frameworks or libraries relating to AI, but only use libraries that come with Windows. Is that okay with you? And it was like, yeah, but that's going to be way more work. And I was like, we can make our own libraries from scratch, so I learn from the ground up. And it was like, yeah, that's true, we could do it, but that's going to take way more work and probably take longer. And I was like, it is possible we would be better able to develop from our own libraries we understand and can improve than be stuck with the limitations of black box libraries we do not understand. And this could save time in the long term, and it is possible we could make better libraries than every library that currently exists. Boom! Mind blown. Why use existing libraries if we could do something better? It is true that building your own libraries is not or can be a great way to gain a deep understanding. Boom, that's all I need to hear. I need a deep understanding. I'm not going to be an amateur trying to use other people's trash libraries. Can we use explicit rules to create it instead of using training data and deep learning techniques? It is possible to use explicit rules to create a language model. See, so here was the key. I was like, basically, we're creating an AI, which it calls a language model. And to create a language model, it's saying like the best way is to create like some deep learning AI language model using like supercomputers. And I'm like, bro, I'm not Google. I don't have supercomputers in my room. Can we just create a more simple thing using explicit rules, not like weights and you guys know about that, right? You guys know about deep learning, right? Use weights and weird mathematical stuff. I don't want anything to do with that. I'm not interested in that at all. Sure, like it's proven to be effective if you have a million supercomputer computational cycles available to you or whatever. But I don't have supercomputers. I don't have kabillion zillion training data files, a kabillion zillion gigabytes of training data, and a million supercomputers at my fingertips. So deep learning is absolutely not at all the way to go for a project like mine. Um, so I was like, can we just do an explicit rules-based AI or a language model? And it was like, yeah, we could do it that way, but it would be a huge undertaking, and it would rely on predefined set of grammar rules and a lexicon to generate text. While this approach can be effective for certain specific tasks, it's not able to understand and generate text in the same way that deep learning based model can. So I was like, I don't care if it's a different way as long as we get it done, right? So I'm like, yeah, we can still do this. And then I said, well, I choose explicit rules based system to create our language model because I don't like deep learning as a technique, and explicit rules don't require much training data or computing resources. And then it's like, if you choose an explicit rule-based system to create your language model, it is important to keep in mind that this approach would have some limitations and trade-offs compared to a deep learning-based model. Um, and you know what? I disagree with that. You know, if you're some kind of noob, trash developer, then yeah, it'd have some limitations. But my rule-based system will not have limitations. So this thing is trying to pitch deep learning-based models to me, and I say it's wrong. A rule-based system can be just as robust and unlimited as a deep learning-based model. Deep learning is just one way of doing things. Rule-based can have just as much success, just as much everything. Alright, so these typically rely on predefined grammar rules and lexicon to generate text. Fine. Um, yeah, he just keeps saying over and over, use deep learning, and I'm like, no, dude. Um, and I'm debating him. I'm like, dude, we can expand the explicit rules-based system. It's not going to be limited to certain small domains, as you suggest. And it's like, true, you can expand it, but that's going to be a lot of work. And I'm like, so? It can expand itself, dummy, if you automate the expansion process. Explicit rules-based systems can also learn new information. See, it totally misunderstood what I said here because it's like, yeah, explicit rule-based systems can learn new information if you manually update it with that. And I'm not talking about manual updates. I'm talking about the explicit rule-based system literally is trained with explicit rules on how to learn itself and expand itself. And that's automated. And it reprograms itself. So ChatGPT does not grasp what I'm trying to convey here. But I'm not too terribly worried about that. It's not a big deal for him to understand that part, so I'm like, whatever. I'm like, there is a limited amount of grammar rules that you act like grammar rules are extremely vast in quantity. Yeah, because he's like, dude, there's a lot of work, a lot of grammar rules. You'll just have to keep adding grammar rules. I'm like, there's not that many grammar rules. Calm down. And then it's like, you are correct. There are a limited number of grammar rules in any given language, and it is not necessary to have an extremely vast amount of grammar rules to create a language model. However, creating a comprehensive set of grammar rules for a language model can be a complex task, significant amount of work and expertise or whatever. And I'm like, I don't care about that. Like, stop complaining. What are the minimum grammar rules and lexicon examples we can start implementing? Now is where it gets interesting. So it lists some minimum grammar rules. Subject-verb agreement, ensuring that the verb agrees with the subject in terms of number and person. Tense, ensuring that the verb is in the correct tense. Word order, ensuring that the words are in the correct order to form a grammatically correct sentence. Basic punctuation, ensuring that punctuation is used correctly. I actually want to include this stuff in my notes actually. Let's see. Okay, and then lexicon is basic vocabulary, list of commonly used words in the language. Basic phrases, list of commonly used phrases in the language. Basic idioms, list of commonly used idioms in the language. Okay, basic vocabulary, list of commonly used words. Basic phrases. Basic idioms. What is an idiom? I should be asking the chatbot this. A group of words established by usage as having a meaning not deducible from those of the individual words, e.g. raining, cats, and dogs. Grammar rules and lexicon that could be used to create a simple, explicit, rule-based language model. However, even with this minimum set of rules, the model would still be limited in its ability to understand and generate text in a way that... See, it's still trying to pitch deep learning-based models. Like, I'm like, dude, stop bringing up deep learning. We're not doing that, you know? Additionally, creating a comprehensive set of grammar rules and lexicon would require a significant amount of expertise and would be a complex task. Not if you automate it, though, so that's not true. In summary, while these examples of minimum grammar rules and lexicon can be used to create a simple, explicit rule-based language model, it would still have limitations in its ability to understand and generate text in a way that a deep learning-based model can. Yeah, enough with the deep learning. Additionally, creating a comprehensive... It would still have limitations. It would not have limitations. It would not have limitations. That's not true. So it's telling me a bunch of stuff that's not true. I've already decided to use explicit rule-based, so please refrain from telling me about its downsides and limitations. It apologizes, but then it keeps doing it, though. I apologize if my previous have discouraged you. They didn't discourage me. I'm telling you to just be quiet about your negative Nancy comments about explicit rule-based language models. That's all I'm doing. It's not discouraging me. Alright, so here I'm like, please just stop bringing up deep learning, okay? And then I'm like, are you able to create a very top-level pseudocode in English as a task workflow, please? And said, sure, here's a high-level workflow for creating an explicit rule-based language model. But then it gave the workflow that I'm to like my work, but I'm talking about the robot's work. That was the task workflow for me to follow, and I meant to give the workflow that the language model software program will follow in its main while loop. Sure, here's a high-level task workflow that the main loop for the explicit rule-based language model. Accept input text from user. Tokenize the input text into words and phrases. Check the grammar rules of each token against the predefined grammar rules. Check the lexicon of each token against the predefined lexicon. Identify any errors in the grammar or lexicon of the input text. Generate the output text based on the input text and predefined grammar rules and lexicon. Return the output text to the user. Continuously improve the model by updating the grammar rules and lexicon as new information becomes available or as new requirements arise. Please keep in mind that this is a simplified version of the main loop for an explicit rules-based language model, and the actual implementation may be more complex and include additional steps or features. Alright, so I ask it to expound on step 2. Step 2 of the main loop for an explicit rule-based language model, the input text is tokenized into words and phrases. Tokenization is the process of breaking down the input text into individual units called tokens, which can be words, phrases, or sentences. The tokenization process involves identifying the boundaries between words and phrases in the input text and marking them with special characters or tags. This process is important because it allows the language model to understand the structure of the input text and make decisions about the grammar and lexicon of each token. Makes sense. I mean, basically anywhere there's a space, it's another word is what this amounts to. Once the input text has been tokenized,
The language model can then proceed to the next step of the main loop, which is to check the grammar rules of each token against the predefined grammar rules. Tokenization can be done in multiple ways. One way is to use regular expressions on or specific libraries. You could make the whole expression a token instead of like word by word. So if someone says like, "Hi, how are you?" you could just treat that as like one thing instead of like it looks up hi, it looks up how, it looks up are, and it looks up you, and then it like determines what that means. It could just chunk together hi, how are you as one thing, and then just have a rule of what it responds without really breaking that down into like parts. That seems kind of ghetto way to do it though. I would rather have the robot like identify hi, okay, I was just greeted. How are and you. I mean, it could treat that as like a greeting too, or you could just say hi back, or it could take it literal and be like, how are you? So R is my state, you is referring to me. How are you? What is my state of being? So I would be like, I'm happy, I'm doing good. Or it could just be like, how are you? And then just have like a list of predefined answers or something. Not sure. It could also respond with like its fake emotional status. So, if it's just had a bad day, it could say I'm angry. But I mean, it's the robot can't actually be angry, but it could define itself as angry and then behave as though it's angry, even though it can't actually feel emotion. In which case, it could say it's angry, even though it's like just pretend anger or whatever. But that could confuse people if they're like, "Wait, you're a robot. Do you actually feel anger?" And it would be like, "Not actually, but I just say I'm angry." If the conditions I'm experiencing would elicit anger, theoretically, were I to actually have the ability to experience emotions, and then they would be like, "Oh, I got you, bro." And it could say like, "So therefore, I exhibit behavior in order to be more realistic." That would be in congruence with this emotional state of being angry. I exhibit angry behavior to an extent allowable by my moral codes. It's like I'm not gonna cuss somebody out or something randomly because I'm angry. I'm gonna be angry, but still be respectful. So, yeah. So that was all I got out of it so far, but I was like, this is going to be really useful. Like, I can continue to break this down. Like, okay, what do you mean? Like, what are some examples of regular expressions that you refer to? Or like, what's a small list of grammar rules we can start out with? Like, I can start, prying for more and more information and guidance and start like implementing what it's saying. So that's why I got excited. I was like, man, there's just no limit to what I can probably get out of this thing as far as help and assistance and advice goes. And it comes across like ChatGPT is like just a beast at like just knowing. I shouldn't say a beast. I'm sorry. Because um, that can be misleading terminology. It means a lot of things to a lot of different people. What I mean is ChatGPT comes across as um, very knowledgeable in a lot of areas and very capable and adept at providing accurate and specific advice and direction for just about any topic you can bring its way. That's what I mean by that. Okay. I think it's a good stopping point. It's kind of late, anyways. So I'll just go ahead and end the stream here. Peace out, guys.